Hey, good afternoon, everybody. This is From Where I Sit, another broadcast with your host, Dr. C. We want to thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. Obviously, we are going to be continuing our series and Enemies of Democracy from Behind the Curtain. And as you could probably see here, we've added a few more names. We added David Sachs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos, just to give you a brief reminder of who we've covered so far. We talked about Curtis Yarvin, Russell Vogt, and today we are going to talk about these other two enemies of democracy, Peter Thiel, and of course, this jackhat, Stephen Miller. This is Peter Thiel. This is Stephen Miller. We are going to talk about these two guys today. And yes, make no mistake about it, these two are definitely enemies of democracy. So let's get to Peter Thiel. Now, before we get to Peter Thiel, just like we did last week, we're going to do a quick review of the guys we've already talked about. First of all, Curtis Yarvin. Now, we've always said from our other videos of enemies of democracy that Curtis Yarvin is kind of the philosopher of this group of men. And what I mean by saying philosopher is that he basically set the blueprint of what these men are actually trying to do to our democracy. Now, of course, for over a decade, Yarvin is an ex-computer programmer turned blogger, has argued that American democracy is irrevocably broken and ought to be replaced with a monarchy styled after a Silicon Valley tech startup. Yes, this is what he believes in. According to Yarvin, the time has come to jettison existing democratic institutions and concentrate political power in a single chief executive or dictator. These ideas, which Yarvin calls neo-reaction or the dark enlightenment, of course, I don't call it either one of these things. What he is advocating for, which you don't really find in a lot of the writings of these men, where they're advocating for a tech startup dictatorship. What they don't tell you is that what they really want is a neo-white ethno-state. And if you pay attention to our broadcasts, this particular one, the Enemies of Democracy, and some of our other broadcasts that are here to enlighten the Black community and encourage us to unify and become one very strong bloc in this country to prevent this hostile takeover from taking place. And so this is what Curtis Yarvin's all about. Yeah, if you don't know who he is because he's from the extreme right. In other words, he was in the dark web espousing all this garbage that he's talking about. But with the advent of Donald Trump becoming president in 2016 and now here in 2024, this guy has become mainstream when it comes to the right. And when I say the right, I don't even want to call these people conservatives because there's nothing conservative about them. What they really want to do is just get rid of everything that we've worked for and start a neo-white ethno-state. That's all they want. They want all the money and they want all the power. And as you can see here at the end, the last bullet point, which I wanted to add, and this is really important because you got to pay attention to what J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance, has been espousing lately. He's basically telling the American people that the judges that are trying to block this takeover, this hostile takeover that I call, it basically said, well, we don't have to listen to the judges. We should be able to do whatever we want. And Curtis Yarvin basically owns J.D. Vance. He flat out owns him. J.D. Vance is his disciple. He'll do whatever Curtis Yarvin tells him to do. So that's Curtis Yarvin. Russell Vogt, we already talked about him last week. He is the author of Project 2025 Manifesto, also a disciple of Curtis Yarvin. Yeah, you know all of the stuff. He has not been confirmed to run the Office of Management and Budget. I believe that the Democrats in the Senate are doing a filibuster to prevent all these other clowns from getting into the Trump administration, which is great. I'm glad that they're doing that. And yes, he wants to become the director of Office of Management and Budget. Right now, he's just the acting director, but that doesn't mean that makes him any less dangerous. He is still a dangerous individual. And yes, we talked about last week, he wants to use empowerment to limit federal spending by the executive branch and enforcing the Supreme Court to declare that the Empowerment Control Act is unconstitutional. We haven't gotten there yet, but that is his plan. That is this regime's plan. I'm just going to come out and say it. The American people, the majority of the American people did not elect these people. They did not elect these clowns. The Trump administration and his cronies, his circus, is an illegitimate president and an illegitimate regime. That's all there is to it. So we have to do everything that we need to do to prevent them from taking any more power and eventually get them out of power. Okay, so that's Russell Feb. Now we are going to talk about Peter Thiel. Now, if you don't know who Peter Thiel is, well, there's a reason for that. He likes to keep a low profile. And he likes to keep a low profile because he wants to remain behind the curtain, but he does wield a lot of influence on the alt-right. These people who are these neo-Nazis, these white nationalists, these Christian white nationalists. He is one of their guys. They love Peter Thiel, but you haven't heard much about him. Peter Thiel has South African roots, just like Elon Musk, who is also from South Africa. Now, I mention this for a specific reason. The South African roots that Elon Musk and Peter Thiel have, these roots when they were growing up in apartheid South Africa, they were shaped in terms of their ideology and their philosophies by apartheid South Africa. Okay. And so what they are trying to do now is trying to wield a way through the Trump administration to have South African apartheid styles here in the United States, meaning in apartheid South Africa, the whites in that country were a minority and they controlled the country over the millions of Black South Africans that lived there. Of course, that did change when we got Black majority rule, and they've had Black majority rule ever since. And of course, Peter Thiel and especially Elon Musk never forgave South Africa for kicking them out of power. And they're still mad about it. If you've noticed, or if you remember, Donald Trump signed an executive order. And of course, these executive orders don't mean nothing. I think they're mostly for show. Most of these executive orders signed an executive order to open up the welcome mat for white South Africans to come to the United States, bring in their hatred, their racism, and all of their baggage to the United States. Because after all, hey, the more the merrier for a neo-white ethno-state. That is who Peter Thiel is. And yes, just like Curtis Yarvin, Peter Thiel also owns the vice president, J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is owned by these two men, Curtis Yarvin and Peter Thiel. And of course, Peter Thiel and Curtis Yarvin are actually contemporaries of each other. I would venture a statement to say that they probably worked on this idea of a a, a techno bro taking over the country. Okay, Peter Thiel, before it was even cool to be a neo-white nationalist, right, was a white nationalist from the very beginning since he's been here, and he ain't never going to change. He also believes that democracy is dead in this nation and should only be run by a tech bro billionaire as CEO and dictator. This is what these people really, really believe. And right now, they are trying to implement this new dictatorship right now, along with all of these other very rich billionaires who have lined up to support these people to overthrow our government. They are committing a slow motion coup as we speak. Now, one of the reasons why we added Mark Zuckerberg to our list is because Peter Thiel also invested in Mark Zuckerberg's Facebook when it came out in the early 2000s. Of course, now it's called Meta, but yes, these men are all greedy as hell, and their lust for power knows no bounds. And last in our bullet points about Peter Thiel, yeah, he's racist to the core. He is racist to his core. These people despise Black people. The idea that they want to take rights away from women and kick Latinos out the country and rail against people from the LGBTQ plus community, all of that is a ruse. What they really want to do is put Black people back in their place. And if you don't know where they think Black people need to be, we're talking about right back to Jim Crow and probably even slavery. This is what these people want. I am not being hyperbolic. I'm just telling you the truth. That's Peter Thiel. My favorite, Stephen Miller. You know, I was watching another podcast by these two women, and the name of their podcast is This Effing Guy. It's really funny, by the way, the way they talk about these people. And they did a profile on Stephen Miller, and they basically said that Stephen Miller is just uneffable. Okay, I mean, they literally hate this man, and with good cause, right? I mean, after all, let's take a look at a little bit about Stephen Miller. And I think that you'll find at the end of what we're talking about here is just Stephen Miller is just an a-hole. He's just a straight up a-hole, likes being an a-hole, and will always be one, okay? Let's look at his high school behavior. He's been doing this ever since he was in high school. Miller was known for making controversial statements, including telling Latino students to speak only English, and of course, belittling the janitors of the school that he went to in California. Like I said, he is nothing more than a first-class a-hole. And I do remember this scandal here about the Duke lacrosse scandal. Of course, you know, Stephen Miller went to Duke University. He gained national attention for his defense of the Duke lacrosse players who were wrongly accused of rape. They were not wrongly accused. They did rape some women, okay? He argued that the case was racially motivated and that the players were innocent. They were not. Miller is one of the people behind the president's controversial travel ban. He is also supporting building the wall on the U.S. and Mexico border. Now, Stephen Miller was part of, and is part of this regime as well, but he was part of the Trump administration in 2016. He was the architect of the Muslim travel ban. Like I said, he is despicable and racist and bigoted to his core. All you got to do is look at that face and you'll know it. You can see it. You can smell it on, right? So yeah, he's back. Unfortunately, he is back with this iteration of the Trump administration. And yes, he is still as disgusting as he was in the past, probably more so right now. All right. Richard Spencer's relationship. He obviously had a relationship with Richard Spencer. Miller worked with classmate Richard Spencer, a notorious white nationalist. Look, if you haven't figured it out, white nationalism or the alt-right or the neo-Nazis, all of these white ethno-state believers keep coming up again and again and again. And it's a read because this is what they all believe, right? So Richard Spencer, a notorious white nationalist, as member of Duke's Conservative Union, like I said, these people ain't conservative. Spencer popularized the term alt-right and was scheduled to speak at the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville. Yes, people were killed there in Virginia in 2017. And of course, rounding up this infamous person. I don't even want to call him a man because I don't think that he is. Another disciple of Project 2025 in the neo-white ethno-state. That is Stephen Miller, okay? So yes, we wanted to give you guys a little bit more background about Stephen Miller and Peter Thiel to add their names and their pictures to the list of enemies of democracy, enemies of our republic. Make no mistake about it, they are going to continue to dismantle our democracy until we, the people, stop them. And so this is where I urge you to expand your circle, share this information, get involved. And when I say get involved, resist. You absolutely positively have to resist this dark movement that we are all experiencing. By the way, just to let all of you know, the whole planet, everybody that lives on this blue planet of ours is scared to death of what is happening in this country, and for good reason. But they can't really do anything about it. It is up to us to do something about this, to stop these people. So anyway, thank you for hanging out with me this afternoon. By the way, I just wanted to add this on. You can also find us. Yes, I didn't want to do social media, but I was encouraged to do so. So here we are, we're doing it. You can find us on TikTok at Dr. C58. You can also find us on Blue Sky at Dr.050658.bsky.social. You can find us on Blue Sky as well. So interact with us. You can interact with us on YouTube where you can find these videos, or you can interact with us on these two social media sites as well. And yes, for TikTok, I know that there are some very clever TikTok videos out there. I'm sure that my family will help me to come up with some clever TikTok videos as well, but definitely interact with us on TikTok and of course on Blue Sky. And yes, thank you for spending a few minutes with us from where I sit. As always, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please subscribe. We did reach 10 subscribers. Our goal is 15. We'd like to get at least 15 subscribers by the end of this month. I think we can do it if you guys can spread the word. And if you haven't subscribed yourself, please do subscribe. And we will see you guys for tomorrow's video. Tomorrow's video is more Black empowerment. We're going to be talking about collective wealth building. And so I will see you guys tomorrow for our next video. You guys have a great afternoon.